Here we
Welcome back to another
go.
episode of Life in the Sands podcast. We have Jake, Zach, and Beans on the podcast today. We are for sure going to get a couple of ball jokes from Beans today, and we're also going to talk a lot about the NFL. So, we're really excited to jump into those couple of things. We're going to talk about mandatory minicamp. We're going to do some NFL rapid fire. We're really excited to talk about those things. Want to shout out everyone for listening and watching. Thank you for listening and watching, whatever platform you are. Remember to like and subscribe. And with that, Bender, we're going to kind of go one by one and talk about some mandatory minicamp no-shows that are pretty notable across the league. And we all have kind of a different pick for who we think might be the most notable. So, Bender, we'll let you go first on there.
Yeah, so my most notable no-show was T. Higgins. For me, it's a pretty simple answer, and that's more just because they're going to have to heavily rely on their pass game this year. Joe Mixon is gone. I feel like that was a big part of their offense and scheme. And even 2 years ago, Joe Mixon being on that team, he caught a lot of balls out of the backfield. So I think that was a big part of their game. They need to kind of fill that hole. And T. Higgins not being there, they can't find a way to give him his money. They will probably have to ship him off and trade him. So I believe they need to give him his money, and he will be a big part of that team just because you can't rely on one player in Jamar Chase. I feel like it would be too easy to focus in on that offense and focus in on him, which is why I think T. Higgins is the most notable player, and that's just because I think it has the biggest team impact.
Yeah. I mean, they do have to pass the ball a lot. Joe Mixon will be a big loss. I think the backup running backs that they have there will actually play really well this season, but Teagan's is a big loss. If he's not there, that means something for sure.
Yeah, T. Higgins needs his money. That's all I'm gonna say.
He's really a number one
Should be.
receiver playing as a
Mhm.
number two on that team.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to a real number one receiver later.
Let's actually do it right now. Beans, go ahead. Talk about Brandon Ayuk,
Ah,
buddy.
yeah. Speaking of a real number one receiver, that's Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, I mean, I would say it's notable. I mean, the realist in me, and if I'm looking at it, it's kind of Niners. They do this every single year. We wait until not player doesn't show up for OTAs. We wait for 40 days. They come back from mandatory minicamp. Same player doesn't show up. People start talking about it. It becomes a big story, and then they sign him. So I'm kind of expecting that from Brandon Ayuk and the Niners this year. But it's definitely notable because of the saga, and how much news has been around him and everything like that. He's the number one receiver on the best team in the NFL, best team in the NFC. And so, more notable than Higgins for sure, I think, but I'm expecting a deal to get done.
It's an interesting conversation to try to think about who's more important to their respective teams, Ayuk to the Niners or Higgins to the Bengals. That in general, I think like that like by itself is just an interesting conversation to have.
It's a whole separate conversation just because you need to talk about teams back and forth then have a good back and forth with it. But I'll save my rebuttal till you give yours here, Zach.
Cool. So my pick is actually Aaron Rodgers, and kind of straying away from the wide receivers here, but Aaron Rodgers is my pick because he hasn't really ever played with this Jets team. Like he doesn't have the reps. He doesn't have any of the chemistry or those kind of things. So going into this season where people are kind of putting the Jets up on a pedestal, saying this might be the year that they don't fall apart or kind of almost put it all together. Which I mean, like if you look at their roster on paper, like they definitely have the pieces to be competitive. But I think it makes a really big difference at this stage in his career. Aaron Rodgers, if you look historically, he's very specific with what he wants from his receivers, where he wants them to be, how he wants the concepts drawn up. He has a lot of input in the way he wants an offense ran. He's that kind of quarterback, and rightfully so, because he has the talent and the track record to have that kind of influence. But him not being there during all this camp time, during all these reps, I think it makes a really big difference for them at the start of the season. And if a Jets team like this gets in a 2-5 hole, a 2-4 hole, if they, get halfway through the season and they're 6-7 or 5-6 or hover around that 500 mark, like I don't know, like I just feel like that'll be an underachieving year for them if you look at their roster on paper. And I think a lot of it could
Mm.
be because there's just no chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from the chemistry standpoint, but here's where I think I have both of you guys beat in this conversation, and it's more just because I think in your guys' heads, those two guys are at least going to make an appearance at some point for that team, play for that team this upcoming season. Nobody knows about T. Higgins. Nobody knows if T. Higgins is getting traded. Nobody knows if he's getting extended. I think I have the biggest question mark here with the T.
Traded.
Higgins pick. So I think that's where there's kind of a difference. Now, biggest impact, it's kind of hard to argue receiver versus a quarterback because a quarterback means a lot. However, at least he's going to make an appearance at some point. And then on top of that, I don't think in general the Bengals are more than an above average team without him, like without T. Higgins. So I think there's an argument to be made there. Um, there could be guys that step up. Like we didn't expect guys on the Texans last year to step up, so that can happen, right? Um,
Mhm.
Likelihood is for me is that that won't happen. I just think because he's the biggest question mark, he is the most notable player.
I think that with T. Higgins, if you trade him, how can he be the most and the most notable if he gets traded? You know what I mean? How can he be the most important player to their team if they're willing to trade him? And I don't think that he's willing to miss games and start accruing fines because I mean, if he misses games, that means he's missing all of minicamp, which means he's getting fined every single day that he's not at minicamp. So it's like legit, like realistic, like there's no like he's gonna show up under a franchise tag. They might tag and trade him, but I don't know if he's more important to his team than either of the two players that we have on uh me and Zach's side.
Yeah, I mean those are both good points. I'll just take the high
Either.
road here and say I picked a quarterback.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, if I'm gonna be real, like Ayuk's the number one receiver, but we have George Kittle, Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. Like,
And re-sign
yeah,
Rajon
maybe it,
too.
maybe it is just yeah, Jennings, and I think we got Ricky Pearsall. Like, it might just be the Jets because it's a quarterback, truly. But I still think he's gonna show up. Is he not showing up because his Achilles isn't as good as we're thinking?
Or maybe he's trying to get a VP bid still.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
do think it was just for personal reasons. However, let's transition. We're going to go into NFL rapid fire. A bunch of quick questions here. I'm going to ask the questions this time. We're going to ask questions towards Zach and Beans both. And if they don't answer quickly, they know what happens. So we're actually going to start with Zach here. First question, your guy, specifically JJ McCarthy, but who do you think should be starting for the Minnesota Vikings to start the season? Sam Darnold, who will be the starter according to sources, or JJ McCarthy?
Sam Darnold for sure should be the starter because this is how every rookie quarterback should come into the league. Sam Darnold is going to play the first 6 to 8 games. They're going to be around 500 because the roster around it is decent enough to be able to be around 500 at that point. It's not going to be good enough for them. So JJ McCarthy is going to come into a team that is playing decently well, but could use a little bit of a spark. And he's going to provide that just by playing the way he has always played throughout his career on national television and big games. So I think Sam Darnold starts, and I think that's the perfect thing for JJ McCarthy to grow into that role.
Am I answering the same question? I think it should be Sam Darnold too. I want him to be the starter when we play in week 2 in Minnesota.
It's a pretty biased answer, but also a very real answer from Zach as well.
Yeah, real quick, like one more thing I forgot to mention. Also, college players play, 12, 13, 14 games. NFL season is a lot longer than that, especially if you count in preseason and potentially making the postseason. So if Sam Darnold plays 6 to 8 of those games, now that schedule isn't so daunting for your rookie QB either. Just one more thought.
All right, man, no more timeouts. We got to move. Uh, Bryce Young is impressing at minicamp, according to sources. Do y'all think he's actually going to make a big jump this season, or will he plummet like he did last season?
No, he's
Go
not
ahead,
gonna make
Beans.
a big. The short guy, he's got little legs. He's gonna make a mediocre, and he's gonna be a middle of the pack quarterback. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Bryce Young is very good unless he can start throwing across the middle of the field, start throwing with anticipation. Uh, um, it, it, yeah, there's not going to be any way for him to succeed. I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bryce Young was a reach in that draft, and I think that at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, I mean, Bryson dealt with a lot of issues last year. Crappy O line, not a lot of weapons, but this has Ben Simmons
No run game.
off-season workout videos written all over it.
For sure, for sure. Let's go and actually start with Zach for this one as well, because it's his Pittsburgh Steelers we're talking about. So, who will finish the season as the Steelers' starting quarterback? Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, or someone else?
This is tough. Obviously, like I think similar to that Minnesota situation, a lot of people are kind of expecting Russ to start the season and Justin Fields to finish it. I think, barring any injury, so assuming everyone stays healthy, I think Russell Wilson actually plays the whole season. And I'll leave it at that.
I don't think he plays the full season at all. I think he plays less games than Sam Darnold does. And I
Wow.
think Justin takes
Wow.
over.
Wow. Yeah.
That's not an irrational take, but that is a great take and a hot take to most people. And now we'll also move to B's
And
favorite
cold
team.
takes. I'll see you later.
Let's move to Bean's favorite team real quick. We got the Niners. Christian McCaffrey. It was released that he is on the cover of Madden. Do we think the Niners are
No
going to be
curse,
struck
baby.
with?
No curse, baby.
Do we think the Niners are going to be struck with the Madden curse, or will they win the Super Bowl this year?
When is the last player that had the Madden curse?
Peyton Hillis,
2010.
14.
So okay, it was he was a white running back, so that kind of is not doing good for my favor. I don't know. I'm buying the physical copy, framing it. It's going up in my room. Niners Super Bowl, baby. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what else to say.
Okay.
My only real opinion on this is that I hope Beans gets a Niners Super Bowl tap before they actually win it, and then they lose miserably in the Super Bowl again.
Beans doesn't play the game on the edge like that. No way. I get a tattoo after they win 2 Super Bowls in a row.
Last question, and staying with the Niners, we're going to go to Zach here. Do you think that Brandon Ayuk should be paid like a top 5 wide receiver?
I think he should
Hmm?
be. It's it's a top 5 offense. I mean, I don't know that for sure statistically, but you look at the weapons that they have there on paper. It's a top tier offense. He's the number one, if not very close number two on that team in the receiving game. It, I think it's a no brainer for me. But I will also say that $26 million a year that they did offer him holding out over an extra 4 at that point just to try to reach that $30 million mark, I think is a little ridiculous. I mean,
I
at
agree.
that point, I know you're living in California, so taxes make a difference there too because you're not taking home 26 a year, you're taking home 12, whatever it might be. But still, I think holding out over that extra little bit when they're already willing, they're willing to make you a top 5 paid receiver at 26, and that's not acceptable for you. So that's
It's
where I kind of
26
draw
in
the line.
the top 5.
I think it makes him top 5, if not
I don't.
top 7 or 8.
Mhm.
I thought top 5 was 20. I think it's 26-7 is what.
You need to
I can't
reach
remember.
the 27 plus mark.
Yeah, he'd have to make 27 plus, and I think that if they offered him 27.5. See, and this is the thing is I don't know if Ayuk is looking for his APY to be near Justin Jefferson or if he wants guaranteed money close to those receivers. So I don't know how they're going to structure it. But I agree. I think that Brandon Ayuk needs to be a top 5 receiver in the league when it comes to just his money. If it was me though, and if we could swing it, I would want Ayuk playing on the franchise tag this year. And then if he can beat out make it a competition between him and Debo and see who stays. Because if Debo has a breakout year, like reports are saying, he's looking great in practice. He's, the Ben Simmons videos, right? Like that's the joke. But I think you basically make it a tryout between whichever receiver stays on the team beyond this last season. Um, and then if it's Ayuk and if Ayuk has another number 1 year, just pay him his 30 million and keep it moving. Trade Debo for a two to
Hey man, this isn't a
a
Niners
pack.
breakdown. Hurry up.
There we go.
No, but before Zach closes the show here, I will close by saying I think Ayuk should not be paid top 5, but top 10.
I guess there's an argument
What
that could be made that he's the top guy on that top offense, but he also does get less attention, even though he's on the top offense, because all those other guys. So his numbers, you could make a case either way.
can I pose a counter question, like a bonus question?
Bonus question.
Bender,
Quickly.
what do you think about CD? What do you is he should he be paid top 3?
No,
No.
top
130 catches. You don't think he's paying top 3?
top five. I wouldn't put him top three. I don't think he's up there with Justin Jefferson and those guys.
Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek.
Yeah,
Right.
I'd put him at
Those,
4 or 5,
those three.
Yeah.
or the same amount of money, but not more than them.
So we're saying that CD and IU should get roughly the same amount of money in the same like
Same ballpark,
stratosphere.
within like 1 or 2 mil. Yes.
Yeah.
Brandon IU caught 50 less balls than CD Lamb did last year.
We can talk about that on a later podcast.
Yeah, this is a really interesting conversation because at some point too, it's like, man, everybody's within 26.7 and 29.8. Like, who the cares?
Who's the next domino to fall? Because if it's somebody that's closer to like the Jay Jettas like number, then that's a new precedent. If somebody else signs and it's closer to the mean,
The Devontae Smith
then
number because he was early,
yeah,
right?
then that's an outlier. Yeah, then it's an outlier, and nobody's even going to get close to that again,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, all right, everyone stay tuned because we have a very lengthy wide receiver pay scale conversation to have in a future episode. But thanks again, everyone, for watching and listening. This was Life in the Stands podcast. We will have our this was our 50th episode of the podcast, actually. So this is
I didn't
really
know that.
exciting. Thank you again, everyone, for watching and listening. Remember to like and subscribe whatever platform you're on, and we'll catch you on the next episode.